Welcome back into the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Policki. He's Jacob Liberta, and we're a Minnesota sports podcast. So if you're a Minnesota sports fan, please click that like button and feel free to subscribe to our channel as well. And today we're going to be talking about the Minnesota Wild as their training camp has begun, and actually their preseason has already begun. After they've had a couple games here, and I guess we're just going to kind of talk about what the latest is from camp. Um, you know, not a whole lot going on really in terms of drama. Kaprizov did have a good first preseason game against Colorado. He had a goal and an assist, but then he ended up taking a shot off the foot. And they basically had to lobby with him to get him out of the game. It sounded like he didn't want to leave the game. And he also hasn't practiced the last couple days. Dean Evison basically says it's no big deal. He's totally fine. They're just basically holding him out just to make sure he's 100% ready to go. But I guess, is this any sort of concern for you, Liberta, as you think about our star player having a foot injury already in the preseason?
Yeah, it scares you a little bit. It makes you hold your breath. And especially in the preseason opener when you get a guy that needs to come out of the game, like you said, just off like a foot injury. Like they don't love that, but the way they're making it sound like there's no real reason for concern here. So I mean, Kaprizov's probably easily the guy who has the least to prove, or really least amount of need for this preseason action. So like I don't think he really needs to play, and if the injury's not serious, then we're fine. But like, yeah, obviously, at first glance, like that scares you a little bit. But you never want to see something like that happen in the preseason. I mean, never want to see it happen, but especially in the preseason. So I'd say we're good though. We're good.
Yeah, and kind of an interesting approach with these preseason games too, with the split squad type thing. So it's you didn't get a real barometer of what the lines were going to be because I think Goudreau's playing with Hartman and Kaprizov. But another interesting thing is with Kaprizov out, the game went to overtime. Albeit stud goalie prospect Jesper Wallstedt came in for Fleury. He gave up a couple goals, but game goes to overtime. Marco Rossi is out on the ice with Ryan Hartman, and I don't remember who the defenseman was at the time. And it might have been Dumba, or I don't remember who was all playing.
I can't remember who it was.
Yeah. Anyways, Rossi, has a really nice pass to find Hartman for the game winner. And, all indications from what we've seen so far and quotes from Guerin and Evison is it sounds like Marco Rossi is already starting to kind of make his mark and, potentially, moving forward to be that second line center.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear because that's probably Bill Guerin's signature pick right now because I think that was the first one he made with the Wild.
I believe you're correct because I think Boldy was Fenton.
Yeah, I think that was I think that's the last Fenton first round pick was Boldy, and then the next year I think it was Rossi. So obviously this is it's a big deal for him being the first draft pick, especially a top 10 guy, and especially when we've had all these question marks at center in recent years, and I think we've been looking for a stud like that to come through the ranks and really assert himself in our line combination, especially being a top 6 guy that we think he's going to be, and a really good one at that. So I think this is awesome. That had a lot of positive signs through this training camp and right away in this first preseason game. So I think that's big for this team, especially just needing some, some more new star power to replace what you lost with Fiala. I get to play different positions. Fiala was the great wing, and then you got Rossi as the center, but still it's firepower nonetheless. And I think this is great for this team to play anywhere close to the level they did last year as far as regular season success goes.
Yeah, and I think it's critically important to get Matt Boldy another running mate. Whether it's a center or another wing. I think Boldy just needs that running mate that can feed him. They obviously had chemistry down in Iowa. They played great together down there. So, I'm hoping he can just continue to roll with this and grab that number 2 center spot because the first line is definitely solidified. I thought maybe they'd try to shake things up, but it sounds like Hartman still looks really good, which is encouraging. And if Kaprizov and Zuccarello can keep that same chemistry, I guess why really mess with that? So get Rossi centering that second line. You probably move Goudreau to the right wing would be my guess. And then you got Matt Boldy on left wing. And then, Greenway is going to miss the start of the season. So it sounds like Tyson Jost is moving up on that Eriksson-Ekfelino line, which I actually like because he does play aggressive, but he also provides a little bit of speed for that line as well.
Totally agree. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a key thing there to point out because obviously with Greenway, Foligno, and Eck, none of them play with that great of speed. It's a big, like it's the grief line. They play big and they play physical. So like it's kind of nice to have maybe a little bit more balance there. And then, you consider basically we have a lot of options, which is nice to have, and I think that'll be key early in the season, especially when you have a couple guys that are hurt, like you said, with Greenway, and then on the defensive side you have Merrill out. For what it's worth, like those aren't great players for us, but still, nonetheless, it's guys that contributed to this team last year that you have to fill holes for this year, at least early in the season. So I think that's going to be important to sort out here in this preseason process.
Yeah, speaking of the Merrill injury, with him being knocked out for the first few weeks of the season, they traded Dmitry Kulikov away, trying to create a little bit of cap space. So that really opens the door for Kalen Addison to try and make this team finally this year. I know he's been up and played a little bit with the squad the previous couple of years, but I think they're just looking for a little more defensive consistency from him for sure. I mean, would you consider it extreme disappointment if he doesn't make the team this year?
I personally would, because I feel like this has to be his time now, especially when we have a very obvious hole as far as defenseman goes. Like I
Right.
said, kind of moved on from a couple guys, so it's like I feel like this has got to be his time, especially when he's already got his feet wet a little bit playing with this Wild team these past couple of years. So if he doesn't come out now, then it's like, well, when's he going to do it and make that jump? Because I think everybody's been, I'd say, fairly excited about him, at least getting
Yeah.
in getting in these rotations, but it just hasn't happened yet for reasons maybe that are things are going on behind the scenes that just don't know about. But I would say, yeah, this would be a disappointment if he's not ready to go, especially right away from the jump here.
I would agree. They signed a veteran in Andre Suster, who's kind of just a low budget kind of back of the defense, signing, kind of like a John Merrill, Dmitry Kulikov of the last couple
Yeah,
of years.
exactly.
Um,
That doesn't really do it for me.
no, I would hope he'd be able to beat out a guy like that. It sounds like they're going to pair Brodin and Spurgeon, at least try to pair those two together finally this year. Put Middleton and Dumba together, have a little more of an aggressive defensive unit,
Yeah,
albeit not quite as disciplined. But
yeah, I don't know.
um,
It's a little sketchy. Yeah,
and then you'd throw Goligoski down on that third defensive pairing with hopefully Kalen Addison. So
yeah,
definitely interesting. And then the last thing I guess I really wanted to bring up was I mentioned Wallstedt earlier. He came in relief for Fleury about halfway through the game, and he did let in a couple goals. That it wasn't anything egregious, by any means that looked terrible. Getting his feet wet in the NHL, but training camp wise, it sounds like he's been pretty impressive as well. But I think Guerin's kind of stressed. Like they're definitely gonna try. Barring unforeseen circumstances, they're gonna try to give him a full year in the AHL. It seems like.
yeah. And I think that's a great plan. I think that this is great that he's getting this exposure to the NHL, even in preseason capacity, split squad kind of thing, where you're not going to get every team's best, obviously, but still NHL play nonetheless. So I think this is great to see him. I think this is exciting for the fans just because I think there's been a lot of hype building for him in this past year, really ever since he got drafted, I guess. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see what he's got, even in limited capacity like this, just because I think he could be that goal of the future once Fleury's done, because obviously everybody knows Fleury is definitely up there in age. I think, what is he, 38, 39 or something?
Yeah, 38, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like, he's a little bit older, so you never know when he could even drop down with injury, or who knows what he'll look like after this year. So, like, got to be ready to go with other options. And I think Wallstedt's exactly that. So, I'm pretty excited to see what he has to bring. But at the same time, yeah, I'm good with being patient too, because how old is he? Isn't he only like 19 or 20 or something?
I want to say he's 20 or 21. He's very
Yeah.
young.
Yeah.
So
Because we just drafted him, what was that, a year or two ago or something?
yeah, yep.
Yeah. So, like, no, he's still got plenty of time to develop. He's still quite young, so I don't think we want to throw him in the fire just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy he's over here already playing for the AHL team.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
get him that year of exposure. If we absolutely need him this year in case of emergency, I guess it'd be interesting to see what he's got. But I would hope, a year from now at this point, maybe we're talking about, if somehow Fleury wants to come back for another season, maybe it's a passing of the baton where they split time 50-50, or, maybe Wallstedt even just eventually takes over for him. But I'm hoping a year from now, we're at least talking about Wallstedt being one of the two goalies in the NHL. So I think to get there, he's just got to have a solid season in the AHL and just really get acclimated to the Wild organization, really.
Yeah, for sure. And that's that's what's happened with a lot of our best players, really. They've come up through the ranks like that, where they got went through their due diligence and played a lot of time in the AHL for the Iowa Wild. Like, for instance, we're about to see Rossi. He's spent a considerable amount of time down there now, and then Moldy, kind of same thing. So it's like, I think it's just kind of a rite of passage, basically, to get acclimated to playing over here. And like I said, in the organization, I think that's big. So pretty excited for that, to see his development this year at the Iowa level.
For sure. Any other final thoughts from you before we take off here on any other burning Minnesota Wild topics?
Yeah, I don't think anything stands out too much right now. I guess I would say maybe I'm kind of surprised at how much love they're getting nationally, as far as like how good everybody thinks his team will be. Like, I kind of figured after the year we had last year, everybody would be like, "Oh, regression, regression." Just like I'm kind of thinking myself, to be honest, where it's like
Yeah,
we're probably not going to get close to what we did last year as far as regular season goes. But I think everybody still views this team as a top 10 team, which I think is great. I kind of felt like we'd be slept on a little bit more than we are, but kind of surprised that the the media viewing, or I guess in their eyes, in their perspective, kind of feels pretty close to what I think about this team as well. So like that
right.
surprised me a little bit because I always feel like the perception's always different. But on this, it kind of feels just about right. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's interesting too. That a lot of a lot of places we've seen, especially like their over unders is somewhere over, around 100 points or maybe a little over. It's like that
Yeah,
kind of blows my mind because I feel like 100 points is a really good season, and we kind of blew that out of the water last year with 113.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but I mean, we did lose Fiala, we did lose Cam Talbot, two very important pieces. Um, I mean, maybe I don't see how we're going to quite replace the production from either. I mean,
No,
maybe this Gustafson really impresses and a change of scenery does him well because he's a younger goalie.
true.
But
Former second round pick, I think.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, he was with Ottawa, who was a horrible
Oh
franchise.
my gosh,
Up
dumpster fire.
until they're starting to make some
Started to
moves
build.
now.
Yeah,
But I mean, yeah, he was just in a poor situation. So maybe he comes here and does well. But I'm kind of with you. I definitely, was thinking regression with this team. But I mean, maybe just the vibes are still good. They were a very close team last year. Maybe they're just kind of able to carry over a lot of what they did last year into this year. And yeah, they might lose Fiala, but maybe Grassi can step in and they don't lose that much of a beat. So it's certainly possible, but I mean, yeah, there's still some tough teams, especially in their division, let alone their conference as well. So
yeah,
um, Calgary's still strong, Edmonton is still strong. Not to mention Colorado won the cup
yeah.
pretty handily. I mean, there was never much,
Doubt.
doubt about Colorado winning the cup. So
No.
and the Blues who smoked us last year in the playoffs. So a lot of good teams in the West.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody kind of views it like they should on that first round series last year. That sure we lost in what was that, 6 games, but it's like, well, I mean, we we just kind of got a tough draw in that first round playing a Blues team that was just one spot below us in the standings. So like
Yeah.
it kind of was just tough for us and the way it shook out, but that's the way it works sometimes. And then also I think the Kaprizov effect definitely plays into that too. I think everybody around the league recognizes him as like a top player now when he had a top 5 point season last year. I think you can't look past that where guys like that can get borderline carry teams. So I think
Yeah.
plays a big role in the wild love too.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, maybe it's hard to expect him to do better than what he did last year, but maybe he's still got that in him. Maybe he can still get better. So,
And he's going to be
um,
playing on that same line too, as far as like
yes,
continuity goes. And you saw that he could be extremely productive with those guys. So kind of hoping for more of the same this year.
yeah, absolutely. But I think we'll wrap it there, and that will do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please click the like button on this video, and feel free to subscribe to our channel as well. And feel free to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram, and let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you make of this Wild team? What are your expectations for the season? And any other training camp storylines that you might have. Whether it's Marco Rossi or Kirill Kaprizov, anybody, let us know your thoughts on the team. And until next time, thanks for watching.